You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 148, released on November 1st, which is National Authors Day. I applaud anyone out there who's written a book. And as an author myself, I know the physical and emotional energy that it takes to publish one. So yay for all of us, putting your ideas out there for all of the world to see. And I'm really excited to get to celebrate my friend, Dr. Alice Burron, as she gets to embrace this day as a newly published author herself. If you're a regular listener, you might recognize her. She was a guest in 2024. That is episode 103. If you want to go back and check it out, give it a listen. Dr. Alice Burron is an exercise physiologist, health strategist, and author who helps people outthink their health overwhelm. With a sharp eye for irrational health decisions, she teaches listeners how to pause, ask better questions, and make confident choices because health doesn't happen or improve by accident. It happens and improves on purpose. Health Shift, your personal guide to making strategic health decisions, is her new book, and I'm going to encourage all of you to go out and get it. But first, we're going to talk all about it. So, Alice, thanks for coming back on the show with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
It needs to be, because there is so much to say and talk about this topic. And, you and I mean, we've been in the health world for a long, long, long time, and lots of people are talking about it. September was Self-Care Awareness Month, and, August was National, Wellness Month. And I'm like, aren't these, don't we know? But no. And maybe we do know, but we have a hard time making a decision because there's so many decisions to be made. So we're going to dive into that whole concept and the step-by-step approach and, what the gist of your book is. But let's just give a little bit of foundation before we dive into that, just a refresher for people if they haven't listened to our previous podcast, just a little background on you, and then, what even drove you to write a book like this?
Oh, yes. Well, I love people. I wanted to help them. I could really see some struggles, and you've probably seen this too. What I would say is the reason that drove me to help and write this book is that from my perspective, I was trying to understand why people were making the health decisions they were making. Some of them seemed really irrational, especially around diets. I don't know what it is about diets, but they're very exciting for people to try, and very seldom do they succeed. And I kept wondering why they would do this over and over again. It just seemed so irrational to me. So I started to really dive into this world of health decision making. Like, what is going on when people are making a health decision? Why are they doing this? And how can I help them do it better? So from a personal trainer and a health coach perspective, I thought, okay, I know that eating right, exercising, hydration, sleep are so important, but I'm still not seeing them do it. Why is that? And so I started to really dive into that coaching methodology. How could I coach someone to help them do better? And when I started doing more health coaching, I started to see some change and improvement, and went, there's something with health coaching that really helps people. So if you need help, like moving to the next step, a health coach can really help. But what about those that can't get a health coach or don't know where to find a health coach? Could they coach themselves? And that really was the start of the book. What I thought would be a book that would just be packed full of information, changed into a pathway of how people can think about their health through a health decision. And so it started to unfold as a journey, looking at health as, your secret, like, journey to mysteriously solving your own health, where it's like this just kind of unravels, and you get to discover yourself with no right or wrong answers, no one way to do it, only your way. And how do you do that so that you can actually excel through a health condition or just get healthier faster? So that's where the book started, which is a big concept. And I had to dial it down into a book. And when I did this, I thought it was like wrangling a bunch of snakes into, into some kind of cage. It would just seem like they just wanted to sneak out and go somewhere else. But when I finally ended up getting to the part where I was working with my editor very, very closely, I understood. It occurred to me, we don't need more options. We don't need more information. We need a logical approach. And when I started to look at who does this really well, like in the world of business or, even health coaches, how do they help people go through really how to think strategically around their health at large? That's what I needed to write. And that's what I wrote. And it's a magical book where you are the hero of the entire journey. It's not telling you what to do. It's taking your hand and guiding you to do the thing that you want to do.
And that in itself can feel very daunting to somebody, right? I know you've experienced this. I experience this all the time. I'm not gonna lie, I would like this too. I just want someone to tell me exactly what to do and guarantee that I'm going to get the outcome that I'm looking for.
That's so fair. I think that's our culture today, is we expect that, the doctor will have the answer. Someone will have the answer. And so my response to that is, although that is good at times to be told what to do, we really need to own what we want to do. And that is a skill. It's not something we're born with. It's not something we're being taught. It's not something we're learning. And this is doing us a disservice. We have to teach ourselves, but first we got to realize we need to do that. We need to understand where we really aren't doing our best and how we can get better. And it's a skill building thing. That's what caught me off guard. These consistently weird health decisions that people were making in the name of logic weren't logical at all, because they weren't understanding they weren't logical, and they weren't building a skill and getting better at it. They were doing the same thing over and over again. That's the diet circular thinking, like, let's just try another diet and another diet, or a pill and another pill. And it's at some point in time, you've just got to go, but none of this really makes sense. What can I do to make sense of it for myself? And yes, we love to be told what to do, but I want to tell you that the best boss of you is you. And once you get that kind of understanding that I trust myself, I know I can do better with my health, it changes the whole way you look at health, where you don't want to be told what to do anymore. You want to figure it out because you have the answers. You know you better than anyone else. And then it just shifts it reframes the whole talk about health to something that you like intentionally want to nurture and have, not to manage. It's not like a bank account where you manage your money. Instead, it's like, how do you interact with your health each and every day? And why did I do that and not do that? That's interesting. What does that say about me today? Why is such a good question? And just asking more questions, to me leads to the answer. That's the Pandora's box. And that, to me, the answer isn't a question.
Well, and it truly requires that you be curious and that you are willing to invest the time and energy to continue down that path of curiosity. And I think that's probably something a lot of people don't have bandwidth for, right? They don't have the bandwidth for one more thing because they're doing life and they have kids and they have, other people that they're taking care of, and they have careers that they're worried about. Right. So how do you get over that initial roadblock with somebody?
Yeah, there's a lot of roadblocks, and that's a real one. There are roadblocks that are truthful, like you can't control roadblocks. They're just going to block the road, and you've got to work around them or you've got to accept them. But there are others you can control. And that's, I think, where we kind of rely on those things we can't control as the excuse for the things we can. And I always say, no matter where you are in your life, I had 3 kids under 3, I was overwhelmed. All of them were in diapers. It was insane. And I still had time to exercise. I still had time to, do the things that I knew were fundamental to my health and well-being. And I'm not saying that to brag by any means. I'm saying that because I know it's possible. But it's practice. It's not something you learn overnight. You just start doing one more thing that can help you be a little better. We're not talking an overhaul here. We're talking about just one little modification on top of another. And when you start to unravel what that looks like, each health decision in and of itself has a ripple effect. You make one good one and it's going to ripple into a positive place, and you make another one and it's going to like expand that ripple. And I just think that if we could make one better health decision, or at least one that we intentionally thought about every day, we're just going to definitely do that. If we do that every day exponentially, we're going to be healthier. And it doesn't have to be big stuff. It can start with just drinking more water. That's foundational and fundamental. Don't tell me you don't have time to drink water. That's not true, right? So it's like going back to what is real, what isn't real, and kind of like almost arm wrestling against yourself a little bit, going, okay, I think that I don't have time. I'm overwhelmed, but what can I do? And is that really true that I can't do anything? Because I'm sure there's something there. And then just looking at the fundamentals to start: exercise, nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Is there one little thing in those groups that I can do today? And I'll tell you, everyone can do something. Yeah.
Well, this is why you and I get along so well, because we literally speak the same language. However, I will tell you, there are still people who don't really fully appreciate and understand why they need to drink water. And I know this because I talk to them. They're like, but I'm not thirsty. I don't need water. I'm like, no, you do need water. Thirst is like, we're kind of late in the game, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think there is still a gap of understanding what you truly need to do to be a healthy human for some people.
Yeah, I would say
just,
so.
I know what to do. I'm not doing it. It's, I think I know what to do, except that you kind of don't.
I think that's totally fair. I think you're pushing back on the reality a little bit, going, all right, there are some people that just really don't know. I would say they're the minority. Most people do know that water is good for you. If you ask them and they're really honest with themselves, they'll go, yeah, I do know that water is good for me. They're not going to push back too hard. The thing they're pushing back on isn't the knowledge that water is good for them. The thing they're pushing back on is they want an excuse to not do it. And so that's the question to be asked, not, why do do you know that water is good for you? It's like, okay, let's think about, why don't you drink water today? Why is that? And when you start to ask those whys and unravel that, mystery of what is it that you have against it? I mean, honestly, we all die without it. We know this. It doesn't take but nobody needs to even tell you that, right? Everybody knows. So how do we take that information and make it into knowledge for them today? Is just by understanding, the why they're not doing it to begin with. And I think you can rationalize anything away. And if that's the case, if people are really rationalizing to the point of where they're just not going to do it, they're not ready to do it. And I say that's okay. At some point in time, when you are ready, and it's usually a health issue or condition that triggers that, and guess what? You have something in your list of arsenals, arsenal list to go to and implement at that time. Maybe it's not the time now. If you're going to fight that hard against it, it's obviously something behind that's driving you to do that. It isn't the water, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's so critical, is to evaluate your state of readiness for change, right? Because change is hard. And if you're not ready to do it, it's going to be very short-lived, if at all. If you have the
desire, then you're not going to do it. You have to have some level of I want to. And if you don't have that level of I want to, it's really important to ask yourself why that is. Mm-hmm. And that's that honest feedback with yourself. You don't have to share this with anybody. Part of the Health Shift book approach was just letting that be okay. If you don't want to do it and you're fighting against it, then let it go and surrender. But just be curious about that. Like, what is really the thing behind that that's keeping you where you're at? And those are hard questions, by the way. So I say this with all gentleness and kindness, as much as I can muster, to whoever is feeling that way. Then listen, we've all been there. It's not a matter of having to do it. It's a matter of wanting to do it, and like having the motivation within you and evoked from you to do the thing. Nobody's going to tell you to do anything. You get to choose. Like, it's your body. You decide. And if somebody actually knows water is good for them and decides not to do it, then go for it. It's your body. Like, just do it. It's yours. Own it. That's fine with me. The fact is, though, there's a lot of people who don't think about it, and they're blindlessly, like mindlessly and blindly moving through the day and not really thinking about it. And I'm just trying to say, just take a minute and ask yourself why that is, and just start to explore your behavior in light of health a little more. And that's just a little more can really change a lot.
Well, and I think to that point, it's so easy to fall into all or nothing mindset, right? And
yes.
to have to do it perfect, right? Or why bother? Mm-hmm. Or, well, I need to do all of these things in order to see a result. And I can't do all these things, which means I won't see the result. So why bother doing any of these things? Right. And I know this is a very constant narrative for a lot of people. So
it is.
Yeah. What are some of the health shifts and mindset shifts that can really help people bust out of that narrative that seems to spiral pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think first realize that's not your narrative. That's a narrative coming from outside you. Something is telling you you have to be some way that, is really hard to be. That's that shift in mindset that comes from trying to find your own relationship with your health. And I call it a health philosophy. So how do you really want to interact with your health on the daily? And maybe you don't want to at all, but as long as you know, then you can keep going in that direction. And if you're not satisfied, shift to another. But a health philosophy basically is, how do you want to manage your health? How do you want to interact with it on the daily? How do you want to look in 5 years when, your health, you get a little older and your health changes a little, are you okay with just kind of sliding until that date and then dealing with it at that time? Or do you want to do some things so that in 5 years you feel better about yourself and you feel stronger and you don't have to do so much? Thinking about it ahead of time allows you to be true to you. Like maybe you're like, I'm going to slide till, I'm going to start getting health issues and I'm just going to deal with them then. If you say that out loud and you stand by that and you really feel like that's part of who you are, then go for it. But most people don't even realize that's what they're doing. Instead, they're just blindlessly going through life, just reacting to health and not being proactive with it. So I call it priming. So we're really priming our brains to think about health, not just blindly going forward every day and not thinking about it, even just thinking about it a little. That's the shift in the mindset. And again, there's no blame, no right or wrong, no black or white. It's all gray. And you get to choose where you want to be in the gray. But be true and honest to yourself. Just really lay it out there. And otherwise, it's called avoidance. And when we avoid things, then we really do regret them more later than when we actually are intentional about the things that we do beforehand. Then we're ready to deal with them later. We're like, yeah, I made that choice. I'm going to smoke, and I smoked, and now I have to deal with that. And if that's the case, then you'd have to deal with it. You get to choose. Like nobody's saying shame on you and spanking you, no, you get to choose. And that's what I love about Health Shift. So our culture today is all about, prevention and doing all of these XYZ things. But I want to shift that a little bit to say, think about those things in light of how you want to interact with your health, and then pick your path. Just pick one that resonates best with you. Because if you're looking outside of you going, I've got to look like that, I've got to feel like that, I want to age like this, and that's really true, then pick your path towards that and aim for it and do all the things to make that happen. If that's not true and it doesn't resonate with your soul, then don't. Then say, okay, no, I'd rather enjoy my today, and I'd rather just, have my own routine to get me through the week, and I'll deal with that later because right now life's too busy. That's fair, man. I just want people to think about it beforehand.
Well, I love that approach. Two things. One, I love the verbiage of interacting with your health on a daily basis, right? Versus managing it or something that we're paying a consequence of it, because every choice you make has an interaction and it's going to impact your health in some kind of way. And I think even just using that phrase can help a lot of people adjust that mindset and that approach on maybe some daily choices or, lifestyle habits that they're working towards. And, that hard now or harder later, that is one of my mottos, right? And I think maybe for a lot of people, and I know this definitely was for me at a point in time, is you just don't think later's ever going to come. Well, that's not going to be me, right? That's everybody else. That won't be me, right? I'm the smoker who's never going to have a health issue because of my smoking. Or I'm that person who I'll just eat whatever I want and it'll never catch up to me and it'll never cause me an adverse consequence ever at any point in life. Or I don't need to exercise because look at me, I'm amazing. Why would I put effort into doing anything when I don't need to? And then later comes and they're like, oh, but wait, how did this happen?
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people just don't think it will happen to them. And I think part of this book is living in reality of you and of your environment, because I do call out, hey, we are in a healthcare culture. We're not a health culture, and you and I have had conversations about this where we're just thinking, if things don't do well later, healthcare will fix it. And, as long as someone understands the realities of that and what that really entails, my guess is it'd scare them to death, first off. And they would go, I don't want that, because healthcare system right now is falling apart literally as we speak. I mean, it is very problematic. So that if you want to live in the healthcare system, then those are the choices you make to do so. But, when we're thinking, I don't think this is going to happen to me, that's called denial. And that is a problem. It is a big problem. And I think there are people who live in that world. I'd say those are the people that aren't ready to change. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it will take a health scare to get them to think. And that's just the reality of it. We can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. This book isn't for someone who isn't open-minded. Your audience is so open-minded. They're always growing and learning. Those are the people that will embrace Health Shift, because they'll see the process is so beautifully interwoven with who they are. It's not outside of them. It is them. Now that takes a special person. When you write a book, and this, you can't write for all audiences. My next book might be for that audience who is in denial, or it might be for that person who just says, that's not me, or who's just totally avoiding. And avoidance is a big problem. And I actually did a presentation on avoidance just a couple of weeks ago, because persistent avoidance is not our problem. It's their problem. So when we try to fix someone who has that, it's not ours to fix. And I think that's just the way it is. Like, we just have to, continue to love and nurture people where they're at. And this book does that, but you can't get someone to read a book, that's another thing. But the beautiful part is maybe their spouse read it and can slowly nurture them along, something like that. But that's my answer. Yeah. And I stick to it.
No, it's the reality. Let's talk a little bit more about these health philosophies. I think you've broken that down into kind of a variety of templates. So can you dive into that a little deeper?
Well, I'll give you an example. I think it's easier to just explain with an example of someone, let's say, who really isn't into holistic well-being. Maybe they're not the kind that likes organic foods and has to, who's thinking in that way. They're probably more medical minded. So when I think about that, it's like, all right, if you're going to write a health philosophy, maybe it's medical first for you. Maybe that's the way you want to manage and handle your health. You get, you get a choice: medical, complementary, or lifestyle. Those are your buckets that you get to use as your tools to manage your health or to interact with your health. So on the daily, how do you want to do that? Do you want to rely on medical? Do you want to rely on complementary or lifestyle? Or in what ratio do you want all of those? And when you're healthy, what do you want that to look like versus not healthy? So in the book, I have a pyramid that talks about where you are in your health. It's called the health spectrum pyramid. You have healthy at the bottom and you have chronic disease at the top. And when you're in chronic disease conditions, you're reliant on healthcare. And so medical is going to be medical forward, and you won't have a choice, right? You want to live, it's going to be medical. Thank you very much for it. But at the same time, while you're healthy and somewhat healthy, or even just have a few chronic conditions, you get to decide how you want to handle those. Medical isn't yet the owner of you. And when we have that situation where we're just like starting to feel like aches and pains, or something kind of is calling to you, a gut problem, do you want to go medical first? Do you want to go complementary or lifestyle? And you get to decide. So you get to make this statement to yourself: I'm the kind of person who And then when you say, I'm the kind of person who wants to try lifestyle and complementary before relying on medical when possible, then you just stick to that. And anytime you're in a health concern, then you're like, in emergency situations, my philosophy is go to medical. But otherwise, I'm the kind of person who wants to stick with lifestyle and complementary first. I'm going to give this a go first. And then there's some people, and I love this philosophy some people have, is I'm going to go to my doctor first and get their opinion, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to follow it. I'm going to use it as an opinion only. And I will always pause after that. And I will think about how it relates to lifestyle and complementary and whether I want to incorporate it or not. So it's more like the process. The philosophy is the process of how they want to handle their health or interact with their health during a health concern. So I am a person who is kind of that blanket statement that so write it down now. Like, how do you really want to interact with your health when you're in a health concern and when you're not? And then once you start like understanding what it is that you really want and resonates with you, then you can start to own that and go back to it over and over again when you start to feel the pull of trying a diet or, oh, my friend is doing this supplement. And you can start to really like understand where that fits in your philosophy. Like, oh, I don't try supplements first unless I take some time to learn about them. That kind of philosophy can be honed in to the point where you know what to do in all contingent cases. You're like, oh, in that case, I do this. In this case, I do that. And you get really good at it. And by the way, it isn't that hard. Once you start doing it, you're like, oh no, I already thought about that. I don't just jump on that diet because I always think about it first. And this is how I do that. And you start to have a backup plan. You've pre-decided how you're going to handle those things. So that's a health philosophy in a nutshell.
I love that. Would it also be like good questions to ask? Like, what problem am I trying to solve, or what potential future problem am I trying to avoid? Are those some of the conversations to also think about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing that usually comes to mind, like this is all pre-work, right? So you're pre-deciding and priming yourself for the time that you are going to focus on a thing. But it can be applied to the way you interact with your health on the daily or over a year. But when a health issue arises, then I have a whole process where you can look at it from the health issue perspective, a systems perspective. Am I going to look at it from a GI, my gut hurts, or am I going to look at it from, when you go to a doctor, treatment perspective around this, you have acid reflux. So now you're just looking at acid reflux. Or do you want to try more complementary holistic? Okay, I'm going to try GI gut approaches, more complementary lifestyle, and see if that helps. And so you start to like decide how you even want to approach whatever health issue comes before you even have it. It probably depends on the health issue, right? Like if you have an appendicitis, and you're just going, yeah, this is emergency. I need to go to a doctor ASAP and get their opinion, number one, But if there's someone who's going, okay, this has been going on a while, and kind of like unraveling what happened, where did this come from, and asking those questions, you can then start to rebuild how you want to approach it. So it just depends on the situation, but the more you practice like having those conversations with yourself, and actually taking a minute and going, all right, what's really going on? How long did this has this gone on? Then you can start to restructure how you want to handle it. And it just depends. And the good news is you get to choose. It's all you. It's not relying on medical care. Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm sort of dipping into thinking about my health and starting to really think about my future self, and I want to be proactive. How do I even know, like, let's say I have some things that I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel the best, and I'm starting to have these symptoms I never had before. How do I even know who to reach out to help guide me on this? Right? Yeah. Let's say I want to do lifestyle and maybe some holistic complementary, right? Mm-hmm. How would I even get started doing that?
Well, first off, self-awareness. That's awesome, right? Like if someone were to start to really think about I don't feel right. Like, what are the things? Write them down and start to really hone it in. What's going on? Because there's some things that are like side symptoms, and then there's like the specific symptoms. You can start to tease those out a little, or if you can't, then just start asking yourself, where is this coming from? And I have a process in the book where it's a chart. It's a little person. You start to circle all the parts on your little body. Like, where is this originating from? And then if you start to see a lot of little spots, you might think, oh, that's whole body. All right. So who helps with whole body health? Could it be a chiropractor? Could it be a holistic nutritionist, a dietitian? Like, how do I want to, in light of my health philosophy, choose the next step? I would say, if you are savvy with AI, start typing in those things and say, all right, I have these symptoms. I want to handle it this way. Who might be a good first step or second step? Not provider necessarily, but someone who can help me like discern what might be happening and also what I can do about it in this way. And once I have gut issues and it doesn't feel like it's been right for 6 months. I don't want to take medications, but I'm not sure who to go to. And it'll spit out ideas for you. And some of them will resonate and some of them won't. And that's your health philosophy. You get to go with what does and say, all right, am I willing to really think through, go to a holistic provider, like a functional medicine provider? And that's expensive. It's going to take a lot of time. Do I really want more tests? And you can filter it. I call it CREAKS: cost, risk, effectiveness, effort, commitment, and support. Those are some things you want to think about. Like, am I willing to go all in to this medication, all in to this provider, when I really don't have the money to, and nor do I really like the feeling of this? Then don't, because it's not resonating with you somewhere along CREAKS: cost, risk, effort, effectiveness, commitment. There's something there that's not resonating you, or maybe it's all things. And then try to find something that just seems to fit, like Cinderella's shoe. You'll start to find those things like, that sounds better. I do think that might be a good first step. And it's just that kind of gentle approach. Like, all right, I don't have to overreact. I can start to kind of think about it as in a Sherlock Holmes way. Like, all right, there's some things going on. What do I need to know next? What am I missing? What are the gaps that I don't have that I need to fill before I decide what I'm going to do?
Do you find that because the human body is so complicated, somebody, maybe tries something and it didn't work, so then they stop. And now they're frustrated because now they've tried 19 different things and none of them worked. And so nothing works. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Except that maybe those things did work. They just needed to all come together at the same time, and you needed to keep doing it for an amount of time. Like, how does somebody get over that kind of hump? Because I see that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, I do have a way to make a plan. It's called a health plan. And so you get to set how long you want to give it. Like, okay, I'm going to give this 6 weeks, and you get to track it. Even if it's just mentally track it, you don't have to write it down, but I would suggest maybe you do, and just say, is this doing anything at all for me? But I always, and me so well, that go back to fundamentals. If nothing else, start with the core 4: exercise, nutrition, hydration, and sleep. What could you do within those realms? Because they are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, but they will take a little time. Lifestyle interventions take more time. That's why we like healthcare pills. It's like, give me a pill. It's instant. But with lifestyle interventions, they take a while to build into the system and repair what the damage is done, start to get you equilibrated, and you want to get back in balance. That's called homeostasis. You want to be able to have some kind of a reset. If you want to reset, core 4: exercise, nutrition, hydration, and sleep, in whatever fashion the book lays them out. You get to choose. Maybe it's just walk a little more every day. Maybe it's just drink a little more water, get to sleep a little earlier, and eat a little better. Like, you just do those things. And most of the time people are like, yeah, I'm doing better, because the body that's what it needs fundamentally. Then you can add on top of that. When people tell me, this is a warning, when people tell me I've tried everything, then I wonder just how open-minded they are to thinking differently. And you have to have a little bit of a crack in your shell to be able to say, okay, maybe what I'm doing isn't working. Maybe I could think about this differently. And then you got the book if you needed it. But, just kind of a little different methodology might be in order.
Well, and I think it's hard too, because, somebody, maybe a friend, sees their friend do something, have these magical results, and they're like, well, that should be me too. And then it's not. And then they get frustrated, and and then they give up, and then they revert back to their habits that aren't helpful. And then they see another person do things. Oh, well, that must be the thing I need to do. And then
I know. Fly
right?
by.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's exactly what I address. I mean, the thing is, there are always going to be those flybys. Have your health philosophy ready because it's tempting. You know, we all want a fast fix. So just be ready and say, whenever these things happen, whenever my friends come at me with a new idea, I give myself a pause. I push pause. I give myself a week to think about it and actually research it. And if I don't have solid evidence around it and I've done the research, and I mean, I'm just being really high level. There's a lot to that, right? There's a lot to that. And it's a commitment to do that. And I would, if I were right next to the side of someone who's going, that sounds like a lot of work, I tell you it's worth it, because then you won't be doing this again and again, taking the next diet, trying the next pill, feeling bad because you're not like the person who did the thing and looking better. You're not them. Your genetics is not them. I'll tell you what you are, though. You're human. And if you're human, exercise, nutrition, hydration, and sleep are fundamental to us all. They will work. They will work.
100% agree. And however, talk about nutrition, like you said, I could talk to 10 different people who think they're all eating correctly, and they will look 10 different ways, right?
Yeah, that's that information piece, right? Where do your homework, do your research. Yeah. What do you know, who do you trust? And health misinformation's everywhere, right? A lot of people are like, yeah, I tried the grapefruit, salt, olive oil diet and cleansed myself, really.
Well, and I think it's not even about trying a diet, but it's even just a dietary pattern. Like, carbs are the devil. Oh, fat was the devil. Oh, we have to all not eat any animals because animals kill us. And
there's, I know there's simple truths though. There really are simple truths. We know what we know. Fruits and vegetables are good, and everyone has a different style of eating. It's so personal. It's ridiculous. You can open Pandora's box with that one. But the fact is we know that good eating looks similarly everywhere we go. Get the book Blue Zones. Look and see what people are eating across the globe and how they're living longer than those that aren't in the blue zones. What are they doing? They're eating a very balanced diet. They're not overeating. They're not undereating. They're eating mindfully. They're adding fruits and vegetables. Their proteins are small. Some are vegetarian, some are not. There's no right way. But I'll tell you, there are some commonalities in what that plate looks like and how often they eat. And you can have variations of that. And I'll say some people can really do well if they do it like an extreme way, but I'll say the majority probably can't. So extremes are problematic for most. Now it's a bell curve. We want to be somewhere in the middle, but if you want to try extremes, just be ready to go back to the center and recenter if it doesn't work, because it may not. So that's what I say to that. Yes, it is a wild west, Michelle, the wild west of health information and craziness out there. And that's why it's like, let's go back to fundamentals and let's go back to thinking about it. And that really is the back to the drive of the health shift model. Let's go back to just thinking and not reacting and not holding so strongly to a belief that you're not open to others. And maybe your health philosophy is true for you. Don't expect it to be true for others then, because they're different people. So we don't need to push our philosophy on everyone else either, because once we do that, we're part of the problem, right? Unless you're willing to back it up and give them research and just say, this is why I do it. It's something to consider, but most people don't do that. They're like, my way or the highway. This diet is it. Carbs are horrible. It's this extreme thinking. You see extreme thinking and either parts of that bell curve, too much, too little, bad, good. That's a red flag.
I think these are all really important pieces to contemplate, and it takes patience and diligence. Yeah. And I know people don't have a lot of either of those things, right? And so when somebody is at that point where they are ready, like, okay, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be patient for the result. I've been working with somebody for about a month, and at week 1, frustrated because he's not seeing a result. It's
retraining the brain. No, why are you even expecting that? Like, what is it that made you think that that is going to happen? I mean,
and logically they say, I know I shouldn't expect it. Like they'll say that.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't expect it, but I know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that recurring theme to me can be addressed with mantras, just coming up with like something immediately, because we get stuck in our thinking and that's stuck thinking. And instead, how do we unstick the thinking? A mantra can really help. Whenever I think this way, I remember this, kind of starting to retrain the brain. And I'll tell you, we have been training our brains the wrong way for a really long time around health. We don't have this culture that just has helped us nurture this good way of thinking. So it's going to feel really dissonant. It's going to feel kind of off. It's not going to feel good for a little bit. Then all of a sudden it's going to click and you'll be like, I'm feeling like this is mine. This is the way I want to, hold myself in light of this health thing. You're just going to feel solid in it. And that's really the shift. I know people just though they get in the thought patterns. Coach can break that and just help them kind of move beyond that and think in a different way. Thinking is the hardest thing we do. And it is also the thing that gets us in the most trouble. That doesn't mean we should avoid it. So that's why I wrote the book, to hit it head on, because no one's addressing the thinking. Everyone's addressing the diet, the exercise. Let's address the thinking too. It's an and situation. We need to address that as well. Because if we don't address what's going on between here and here, then we're not going to address what's going on down here. This is where the action is, right? Yep. This drives the action. So we got to start here.
Yeah. I always say the mind is the hardest thing to change. Unless and until you change it, nothing else will.
That's beautifully said.
Once you change it, everything else does.
Everything else does. It changes everything and it doesn't even seem like you have to do much.
Yeah.
All of a sudden things just start to happen. Yeah.
I love it. Well, as somebody who made that mindset shift a long, long, long time ago, and trust me, it was really hard, really hard. But I finally got to a point where I was able to do it because I understood that doing the same thing over and over was just dumb. Like,
a little bit insanity, right?
So let me do it a different way. And slowly but surely it starts to make sense. It gets easier and easier and easier. You get more in tune with yourself. You question, you're a critical thinker. You become curious. You want to know more, right?
It's a journey, right? It is not a destination. And I'll tell you, we're constantly learning. And if you're frustrated with your health right now, guaranteed you'll be frustrated with it later, even if you figured it out now, because your bodies change. Everything changes all the time. It's dynamic. So our thinking has to be dynamic with it. And what you've gone through is a journey, and you're still learning and you're still growing in your journey. And that's the difference. It's not a destination. Like, I want to be healthy. That's ridiculous.
Right.
That's stupid. If you want to be healthy, then you got to define that, break it down into its minute parts, and then go for it. Like, good luck to you. Instead it's like, how do I want to embrace and interact with my health throughout this life? And that's a whole nother way of thinking. And I'll tell you, a lot of cultures are doing this already. So follow how Japanese interact with their health. I lived in Japan. I saw it firsthand. It's different. Think about how people interact with their health in South America. Same thing. Now, are they super healthy? No, but they're way at more peace with their health than we are. So maybe there's something to be said for what we can learn about different cultures and take and piece some of that into our own philosophy so we can start to manage it or interact with it. But if you think about our United States health culture, there isn't one. It's a healthcare culture. So you have to create it. And yes, does that take a lot of work? It's just like finding your own unique style, like what kind of clothes you're going to wear. Think of it that way. It's actually really fun. Once you start to get into the groove, you're like, ooh, I'm going to try this one little thing, and people might look at you funny, but you get to decide because it's you who owns your journey.
Well, and I would imagine that one of the hesitations is, what if I make the wrong decision? Right? Because it's one thing to like wear a color that doesn't look good on you. It's another thing to follow a health philosophy that could lead to maybe a really bad outcome, right?
If there's health logic involved, then you can say you did the best you could do. Yeah. If you've actually thought about it and did your best, isn't that what all we can do? I mean, what if you didn't do that? The outcome could have been just as bad. But
Right.
the fact is you did your best and you tried. There is pride in that. And there's also a sense of peace about it.
Mhm.
But as we are now reacting to our health, we don't feel that. We don't feel at peace when things go wrong because we didn't really think about it. We just let it happen. But if you're putting your all in and you're making a health decision, that's the best you can do. Go you. And 1000% I support you. It's those people who aren't thinking about it. They're the ones who should be scared, not the ones that are thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great piece to end on. But before we officially wrap up, is there anything else that you want the listeners to know other than obviously we'll put all the information on how to get your book in the show notes, but any other tips to leave off with?
I would just say, get to know yourself and why you make the decisions you make. Just take a minute when you start to reach for something you know might not be good for you, or you start to maybe get down on yourself for why you feel the way you do. Just start asking questions and being curious where it's coming from. That's just that self-awareness, expanding your mind a little bit there is the first step. And then I also just say, be patient with yourself. Don't look for quick fixes because there's rarely anything satisfying about a quick fix. Honestly, it's worth the work. You know how it is when you do the hard work and you come up with something at the end, like a project, is so much more satisfying than just buying the project at the store, right? Just embrace the journey of it. Hard work actually can be a fun thing. It's just if you change your mindset around it and just don't give up, and you always have us. We're always around.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much for coming back on, and congratulations on the book. I've read it. It really is really great. It really is. I know what went into that book, and to think about the effort and the emotion that you put into that, it's overwhelming to me. Like I would not have the patience to write a book like that. And
it was hard. Yes,
it was so needed. So I really hope everybody who listens to this gets a copy. Start to take charge. You are in charge. That's the beauty of it. This is just teaching you and showing you that you're in charge, right?
Exactly. So, you're the hero of your own health journey. So go be it.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Alice Burron. Thanks again for coming on with me. And listeners, you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.